he actually started to work with Donald Trump. And so most of these people, Ben, are what are called technocrats. And they've been waiting for this age where they have this incredible surveillance state, not a 1984 surveillance state where you have cameras on every street corner, but you have cameras in every pocket. And so that's been fulfilled. You have artificial intelligence, and so this is all by design, I think, and I don't mean to get into an extremely pessimistic mentality here, but I think it's all by design to really control humanity physically and spiritually, and of course mentally. And that's what we're seeing, and it's a slow effect. It's like boiling frogs in a pot. They don't realize it, but over time, eventually you're cooked. And the alarm bells are ringing, and I think more and more people are waking up to it.
Yeah, the way I see it, there's these two sides. We could say dark and light. And basically, how the dark operates is that they need to consume life force externally. They need to take life force from the material world because they don't have the fountain of living water within them. And this is where semen retention becomes so central, right? We may think semen retention is just like a little hobby that we're doing, a little bit of self-improvement, but it's much more than that. What we're doing with semen retention is we're cultivating the fountain of life within, the rivers of living water that Christ spoke about. We are, like you were saying yesterday, healing ourselves from within, psychologically, physically, spiritually. And so as we continue to do that, as we continue to build up this life force, this God essence within, we are step by step embodying life itself. Life is within us. Whereas these black magicians who sacrifice children and drink blood and harvest adrenochrome, the elites, the ones pulling the strings in the material world, we could say on one level, they have released their life force. When it comes down to it, like fundamentally, they're releases. They, as Samael Aun-Weor says, they release the God essence. They don't have life within them, so they then have to take it back from the material plane. They have to harvest it. We don't have to harvest it. We cultivate it. But they have to harvest it. And it's been going on for millennia, like we said, since the times of the Old Testament. We see the practices of the Baal worshippers who sacrificed women and children, and that's how they venerated their god. That's how they fed that astral entity through blood. So we're coming into a time, as you said, where it's being exposed, where it's being revealed, and it is so imperative right now that men really lock in and really cultivate their energy, master their energy, because we're entering a time now where it's getting very, very real. It's getting very raw. The 2030 is very close now. Agenda 2030 has been planned for a long time. Like you say, there has never been the capacity before for full-scale rulership of the global population. That capacity has never existed before the time of smartphones and smart cities and everything becoming electronic and everything being connected to the internet. So we're entering the time where the abolishment of cash is actually possible and very close. And once cash goes, it's all digital. And once it's all digital, it's connected to your digital ID. And nothing can be bought or sold without your digital ID. It'll be illegal. to buy or sell without your digital ID. And as soon as that happens, we're linked in, and we can get penalized for being naughty boys or naughty girls. Our social credit score can go down. We can automatically be fined. We can automatically have our credits deducted. You know, no paying off your fines. Like, you'll just get your credits deducted, and then you're in trouble, bro. And it'll all be linked to a biomagnetic RFID chip in your hand, in your wrist, which you'll use to purchase anything you need. PayWave, but through your wrist. And it's the classic mark of the beast in Revelation. It's actually possible now, and it's getting close. So that's sort of where things are going on the external level, if we're looking at the dark side. But where do you see the potential lies for us as men on this path of retention? What is our role in this cosmic drama?
Oh, first off, I want to add on to this. Especially, and I don't know how it is out in Australia, but out here in Kentucky, I mean, we're surrounded by these 5G towers, which, forgot my tinfoil hat earlier, but I mean, do they really help with the dropped calls? Because I'm literally, I can see one off into the distance, and I still get dropped calls with my cell phone, like it's 2002. So that's kind of weird. But when we're talking about getting our energy back, okay, when we're talking about harnessing that energy and that healing power from within, you see, if the population knew that was possible, then it would deem the pharmaceutical complex irrelevant. And I'm not saying that, that science has helped a lot. I mean, there's a lot of incredible inventions and healthcare procedures that have come about. But at the same time, a lot of it is brought on by monetary desire and greed. And so we just recently went through a crazy pandemic these past few years, which I don't know about you, Ben, but the last time I checked, not a single person has been held accountable for that. And we still don't have an official area of where it began. And so if we don't know how it happened or where it came from, how are we ever going to prevent it from happening again? And see, people aren't thinking about that because it's just on to the next thing, on to the next, on to the next. How big has Kim K's butt gotten now? How big are Sydney Sweeney's boobs now? Let's find out on next week's episode. When we should really be worried about, well, how are we going to maybe save a lot of the children that are being killed all around the world or going kidnapping or gone missing? How are we able to actually heal our bodies? Maybe go outside and get some sunlight, touch some grass. It's not in the product that Anthony Fauci came up with using taxpayer dollars to come up with and then put in people and then charge them for it. They got paid. It was a big money swindling scheme. And so I think that's first and foremost, is that people first need to gain back their sense of self, not go off from one thing to the next, but actually recenter and realize that all of the power comes from within. Specifically for men, it comes in the act of retention. And so if you have that ability to turn off that desire to engage in a carnal, lustful impulse, if you can sever that connection, you've gained control over yourself. Just like a smoker, right? We have these incredibly tasty vape cigarettes that they taste incredible, and we just get into these habits of pulling them out of our pockets and inhaling them, and we don't even think twice about it. It's the same thing with touching ourselves. So if we can sever these connections to these mindless, impulsive desires, we can gain control of ourselves, and that takes control away from those that wish to control us. I know that's kind of a tongue twister there, but ultimately it's regaining self-autonomy. It's regaining control and not putting control into the hands of a centralized entity simply for convenience sake. like you were saying, the CBDC, the digital bank, the mark of the beast. Well, most transactions now occur with the phone. They don't even have the card. So we went from having gold, or we went from bartering, right, to having an agreed upon form of currency, let's say the dollar bill, which was backed by gold, not the case anymore. So it's literally just paper with the illusion that it's worth something. And see, now it is all on the phone. It's not even in a card anymore. It's all on the phone. And so it's just going one step closer and closer and closer to this system, where eventually it's going to be on your hand. I'll finish up this kind of monologue here with this, Ben. But you're talking about implants. Well, a lot of the talk now at the World Economic Forum with our good friend Klaus Schwab and the COVID-19 crisis, and you will eat the bug. Okay, good old Klaus Schwab and his cronies are talking about putting nanobots in these vaccines, like little injectables, and it's going to communicate with the doctor, so the doctor will know exactly what's going on within you real time, and so that level of control is very much the case, and I think it's about time that men start filling their balls up.
Yeah, the balls need to be filled for sure. We're talking about a few years, right? A few years that we have left.
Yeah, right around the bend.
This is sobering, very sobering. And so, step one, we need to be filling up the balls, regaining our masculinity, cutting out everything that depletes us, cutting out everything that's taxing our energy. And then we need to be building communities. We need to be building networks, because we'll gain strength through numbers and through networks. So, for me, at the moment, that's begun with starting a men's group in my local area. Just meeting once per week around a fire with some men and talking about these issues, talking about our community, talking about our plans and how we're going to deal with these coming changes. We need to have systems in place. We need to have food security. I think that's one of the foundational ones, one of the basics. We need to be in community with people who are producing food, so that when we suddenly get told we can't buy or sell without the chip, we can just be like, well, I'll see you later. I'm going to go to my community now, and Fred down the road has cattle, and Steve has his veggies absolutely pumping, and I'm good, thank you. I don't need to take your chip. Like, I'm sorted. That's sovereignty. That's what we need to build. So that can only come when, number one, we have that life within ourselves. We have that basic sense of independence, of we can do it. And then number two, when we have that network, when we have those relationships, those connections. Because what we saw in COVID was that they tried to divide everyone. They succeeded largely in dividing everyone. Physically, couldn't come closer than 1.5 meters. And that was the secret, I believe, in how they were able to take charge, divide and conquer. They physically and psychologically divided us. Therefore, we weren't able to resist, because we all felt like we were alone. How can they make billions of people feel like they're alone? Well, social distance them, put masks on their face, so they all feel like strangers and no one can recognize each other. No one can even give it, you can't even shake someone's hand. You can't even have that basic human connection and warmth that gives us the sense of unity. So those are really the main things that I see we need to be doing is retaining, building our energy, and then building networks, building communities, strength in numbers.
If I can add one thing to that, Ben, real quick, and I don't know how it was out in Australia, but out here there was a lot of division ideologically as well against the vax to the unvaxxed. And so just a few years ago, I mean, we're talking 4 years ago, we were openly talking about segregation again. You know, certain grocery stores for the unvaxxed and grocery stores for the vaxxed. And it was just like, oh yeah, like this is normal, this is fine. And the government was saying that, you know, the unvaxxed are the worst, and that we're entering a depraved winter because these people aren't complying and taking their Fauci sauce shot. So you're right. Psychologically, this had a real big effect on people, and I don't know if I don't think we've healed from that. And to think how easy it would be to fall back into it again. We looked at this stuff from World War II and from other points in history and thought like, oh well, it'll never happen to us because we're far more advanced now. Look at us. We have these cell phones and we have our nuclear weapons. But no, actually, people are just as likely, if not more inclined, to fall for this stuff because of the level of haze and disillusionment we're under.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember in Victoria, one of the states here, the the governor of Victoria, the leader of the state, was saying that basically they were going to shut out unvaccinated people from hospital.
Right.
So if you had a medical emergency, you weren't going to be allowed to set foot in a hospital.
Subhuman, unvaxxed. You might as well be an Amalek, a blood drinker, right? Subhuman, unvaxxed.
Yeah.
Wild.
So if that's what someone can do publicly, you know, declare publicly on TV for millions of people to see, if that's what they're willing to say publicly, just imagine what they're willing to allow off the air. It just shows you. It's just a little indication of the level of insanity. So
I want to say this last. Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
No, you go.
It's important not to forget this stuff. You know, we look at people like Anthony Fauci who've been pardoned by the venerable Joseph Robinette Biden, our prior president, who probably doesn't remember his entire presidency, but nonetheless he pardoned Anthony Fauci. If you look at people like Boris Johnson, who was the prior prime minister in 2002 when Zelensky and Putin, or Russia and Ukraine, were going to get into a peace treaty, he butted in and stopped that from happening. And now hundreds of thousands of young men have died since that treaty could have been initiated. And so a lot of that blame falls directly on Boris Johnson's shoulders, but he's no longer in office. He's on some beach in the Caribbean drinking a martini with a little umbrella in there. And so one thing to keep in mind is a lot of these people are like rows of shark's teeth. So by the time it's, you know, now it's time to hold people accountable, they're off gone. They're retired. They're partying. Yeah. You know, they're you know, and that's the thing. See, now you can look at George Bush, and say, oh wow, this guy's kind of a real war criminal. Even Obama. I mean, pick any American president, really. And you know, they just get off scot-free. No problem. Everything's fine. And that's just how these people operate. And then it's, you know, as soon as enough attention is gone to them, they just, oh, look over here, look at this. I'll say this, Ben. 2 years ago, we had the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell, who is the daughter of a Mossad agent and former, I guess, wife, or I don't know what their relationship was, to Jeffrey Epstein. And this trial was going on, big trial. And at the same time, don't you know, there was the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial going on at the same time. When was the last time we had a big major celebrity trial? Like what, O.J. Simpson? And so it just coincidentally and conveniently lined up when this high-profile Ghislaine Maxwell case was going on. And so these people are very good at being deceptive and sneaky and covering up their tracks. But it's not working as much as it used to.
I never made that connection. I remember all this hype about Johnny Depp in the media, and I just had zero interest in it. But I was just like, why does this keep popping up everywhere? Like, what did Johnny Depp actually? What is it he was supposed to have done? Like hit her or something?
Yeah, be a toxic man or something, And that was the other thing that you pointed to is the male drive, right, to actually get things back in line, and the powers that be have done a real good job of eroding masculinity out of our society, such as putting the word toxic in front of the word masculinity, just so that people can associate on a subconscious level toxicity with masculinity. But see, there's not the same thing with toxic femininity. And so a man that just goes out there and is a man, being a man, could be toxic. And that's where words and propaganda kind of get in the way there, right? It's like, well, masculinity and toxicity, these are subjective experiences. You might look at Arnold Schwarzenegger and think he's an extremely masculine man when somebody else might not. And well, what is toxic? I mean, is a man putting his hands on his hip and putting his chest out, is that deemed toxic masculinity? Like it's just that there, a lot of these words, a lot of these phrases don't really go in line. And so I think it's really important for men to realize that we're being hoodwinked, whether it's politically or socially, whatever the case may be, and to really start getting the power back. Because I'm not trying to invoke fear, and Ben isn't either, but I mean, it's only getting worse, and it's like quicksand. And even though people that might be deemed masculine are now in office in certain areas, and woke doesn't seem to be flying as far as it did, nonetheless, I'll say down here in Kentucky, there's still an LGBTQ flag flying around just downtown here, and it's like, well, what's the point of that? What message are we conveying to our population?
We're conveying the message that masculinity isn't real, that it doesn't matter, that if it is real, it's toxic. We're conveying the message that the genders should be blended. We're conveying the message that children should be able to get sex changes without the consent of their parents and become transsexual. We're conveying the message that your balls don't matter. They're not valued. They're not wanted.
Right.
We're conveying...
Just a bunch of Homer Simpson.
Yeah. They're conveying the message that it should be okay for a consenting child to have sex with a consenting adult. That's really where it's going, right? Because that's what these people want. They want to have sex with children.
You brought up Ball, right? Isn't that correct? Like, you brought up Ball, okay, and Moloch, okay. So there was
That's
a bunch of emails from Hillary Clinton, right? What was his name? Oh my goodness, the guy from WikiLeaks that was in jail for years. You know who I'm talking about? Julian Assange. So he was the one that released all of these emails regarding, between John Podesta and Hillary Clinton. And, that's where the whole Pizzagate thing came up, when they're like, oh, well, we're going to need like 15,000 hot dogs for this. And like Obama was talking about getting a bunch of people. It was wild. And see, they wouldn't have done this to Julian Assange if it wasn't real, right? So clearly there's merit behind this stuff. And then you have things like, the laptop from hell. You have Biden's son, I forget his name. One of the, doing all sorts of crazy things. So these people that's what they get off of. That's what these people do. And they are so depraved. And it's so awful that if the population woke up to this and we actually got the validation, the proof, there's a video online that people talk about called frazzle drip. I wouldn't look into that if you don't know what that is, but unfortunately, if you do, you know the level of depravity that we're dealing with, that a lot of these people engage in. And it really is time. It really is time for men to wake up and to adopt masculinity again, and not in a prideful manner, but in a very grounded and realistic sense. Be proud of being a man. I mean, be proud of having some heavy balls and going out there and as you're walking around on the sidewalk, you're cracking the sidewalk because of how heavy your balls are, because you've been retaining for so long. And then when something pops off, you're grounded. You know exactly how to handle yourself because you're centered. And so if there ever is a time, God forbid, where you need to engage, you can do it from a place of real intention, not out of panic. And I think that's a big one.
Yeah. The battle is on the energetic level, right? So if you look at a Jedi, most of the time they never have to fight. They can diffuse any situation. You even look at a martial arts master. Most martial arts masters, they'll almost never have a real fight because they can diffuse any situation. They can demonstrate their authority just in their being, in their presence, so that anyone who might want to mess with them can just instantly see, I don't really want to mess with this person. In their composure, in the way they carry themselves, they just telegraph high levels of confidence and power. And I see the same thing happening with guys who are on retention over time. As it builds, as the power builds, it's like we want to get ourselves to a point where we become almost like diplomats, like we can't be touched, because they know that if they touch us, all hell will break loose. That's kind of the level we want to be getting to. We don't actually need to engage in any kind of physical fighting, but if we ever do need to, we know it's there and we know we'll kick ass. That's where I see us going as men. Just building that power, building that power so high that we almost never have to use it.
Is that what the Bible mentions when we're talking about the meek shall inherit the earth? Isn't that what to be meek means? Is to have that innate power, but not use it, to be very discerning in your ability to use it, like as a last ditch effort. So you're not the one peacocking around showing everybody that you have the power, but you're almost kind of looked upon as the weak one. But then when push comes to shove, you unleash the beast and you really show what you have within you. And I think that's what meek means.
Yeah, I never thought of it like that, but I think you're right. Sort of like what Jordan Peterson says. As a man, you should be terrifying. You should be somewhat scary. You should be quite a beast. We shouldn't think that it's virtuous to be weak, or that it's meek to be weak. It's meek to be extremely potent, but to only use that if you truly, truly need to.
Yeah. I want to bring up the importance of family real quick as well. If let's say we're in some civilization 3,000 years, 5,000 years, and we look back on the year 2025, the first quarter of the new millennium, the first quarter of the century. Well, what did they believe in? What were their morals? What were their principles? I wonder if they would look and see the fact that maybe we were worshiping superheroes. We're worshiping Iron Man, we're worshiping Captain America and Spider-Man. and they might think that that was our religion. And maybe it is. Maybe more people are infatuated with Iron Man than with Jesus Christ, or they'd rather hear stories of Spider-Man than Krishna or Buddha. But you see, one of the things that these modern characters don't convey are these true morals. You know, they might be good characters, but they're still extremely flawed, and they're written by men. They're written by, you know, a lot of people that we probably wouldn't associate with it in our daily lives, but we still revere these characters. And so I think ultimately there's a necessity to go back to the roots and really look at why families are important and why constructing families is in direct opposition to big government. Because if you have a strong family, like think of the mafia was a pain in the government's ass, and the mafia is nothing but family, right? Direct opposition. And so that might be a poor example. I'm not condoning violence, but I am condoning the ability to remove yourself from relying on the government in any way, shape, or form. And so, you know, if we as men can talk to our friends, or if we already have families, we can introduce these things to our families. You know, what movies are we going to see? What food are we eating? Yeah, what media, what content are we consuming? And just little steps like this, just kind of injecting a narrative of family values, not only in your family, but just in your everyday walking life, you know, I think is a direct way. One last point on that is a strong middle class is also in direct opposition to big government. You know, if the government's not doing well, most of the power is in the middle class. And most of the middle class is strong because of the strong families. And so if you completely decimate the middle class, or you break up the families, which then separate people, which force them into poverty in many cases, then you're able to maintain control. So that's just one additional thing to keep in mind, and the importance. You know, a lot of the music, a lot of the media, you know, a lot of the quote unquote gender diversity really goes against constructing family and family values. But I think that is, aside from a strong connection with God, probably the best thing that people can do to combat this stuff is to really focus on their families.
100%. God, family, community. These are the pillars. Strong men. The agenda is against the family, against the strong man. I suppose
100%.
Another point to touch on then is the idea in the semen retention community that celibacy is the highest path. I actually disagree with that. I think that, you know, we've touched on this before. I think that as men, our biggest motivator in life is actually women. And it's okay to admit that. And it's okay to transmute that desire to a higher level, so that it's not just women in general, but it's finding that priestess, it's finding that wife, connecting with her and creating a family with her. That's foundational to building the next generation stronger. I think we as men need to get away from this lone wolf mentality and this go it alone sort of mentality, and realize that ultimately we're moving towards finding a wife, starting a family.
Yes, I think you're right. I think that if you're not with a woman, yes, you need to be practicing brahmacharya. You need to be celibate. You need to be chaste. And on the other side of that, if you are, you know, in a relationship, you need to be practicing the perfect matrimony. And if you're actively looking for a woman, the qualities that you're looking for in a woman should be those of longevity, not those of superficiality, where you're just looking at, certain qualities, external qualities of the woman that you think are really going to carry on into building a strong family. I think that's first and foremost is men first need to find out what it is to be a man for them. And hopefully that coincides with the desires of quality women, because quality women want quality men, and quality men are masculine. And so first the man and then once that happens, I think there's a necessity to really get with the woman and find out if this is somebody that you can really get along with. Because, at this day and age, if you pick the wrong woman, or if you get in a relationship with a woman that isn't emotionally stable, not saying that most of them are, but what I'm saying is that the court system and a lot of the legal repercussions favor the women more and more. And so most men might have the initial intention to start an incredible family and to go in and to really develop a dynasty. But if the woman is not on board, then there could be some problems. And I'm not getting into some red pill anti-woman talk, but what I'm saying is that, yes, I agree. Men need and should find quality women to get in union with and to build families with. But the intention or the reasoning behind men pursuing women needs to be on that level rather than scratching the itch of lust. I think that a lot of men are called to practice celibacy. That's not everybody. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any children. We wouldn't have humanity if everybody was a celibate. So yes, there is a desire. There's a need for this. It's the greatest power, sexual transmutation. But it needs to be done in a more cognizant, authentic way, rather than, I hope I can score this chick so I can show all my friends that I'm actually a real guy by getting with this one girl. And then next thing you know, you're stuck. I think that's a big one. Find yourself, find the masculinity within you, exude that, and you're going to attract quality women. And then you don't have to fall for the first woman that makes eye contact with you. A lot of men have a lack of self-worth, and so the first woman that shows them any form of attraction, they just get with. But see, when you're practicing retention and when you're displaying traits of masculinity, you can choose.
Yeah, like one guy said, Tom from the community, he was saying, if you are practicing retention, purifying yourself, practicing GodMode, letting go of lust, you're actually embodying quite a virginal sort of energy. And so you're much more likely to attract a virgin woman. The creme de la creme. The thing that every man really wants is a woman who isn't used goods, so to speak, is a woman who hasn't been tampered with and traumatized by dozens of men. It's like every man wants that pure, pristine, virginal woman. But you're only going to attract that if you're embodying that yourself.
That's exactly it. And I think that's something that you and I have touched on before. There's a lot of, when you've been practicing retention and you gain that additional level of discernment, there's a lot of women that I remember I used to be quite attracted to when I was engaging in release. But now I look at them and it's like, ooh, they kind of, there's some masculine qualities or masculine features about them, or even like I don't know if this has happened to you. You might find what would be physically a very feminine woman, but just their energy, the way they act, the way they talk, the way they carry themselves. I mean, they might as well be, I don't know, Chuck Norris or something. There's a lot of very masculine women out there that if you don't have the eye for it, if you can't catch it, it could lead to some disasters. If you're looking for a feminine woman, I don't know about you, but I'm looking for a feminine woman all across the board. I don't want 5 years down the line to be like, man, she's kind of a just kind of a dude. You know, like I just don't really want that. You know.
Yeah. No chest hair for me, thanks. So yeah, that's been a good chat, brother. Looking at the incoming shifts in the world at the moment, and looking at how we can, as men, really prepare for that by practicing retention. It's our foundational weapon against what's coming. We just got to get strong as fuck on all levels. That's what I'm seeing. We got to get strong. We got to get more connected with each other. Got to break down these walls of separation, thinking that we got to go it alone. Because again, that's more programming. And we got to come together and unite and encourage each other, inspire each other, build each other up to be everything that we can be.
And one way to do that is through the Sons of God Discord community. I mean, that's how we're connecting with all of these men from all across the world. And it's not you're not having to go around and initially find these levels of connection. See, the connection's already there. The desire to retain is already included upon joining upon joining the Sons of God Discord community. So you don't have to get that out of the way. You already know that there's a common goal. There's a common desire amongst you. And so you don't have to develop that. That's the beauty behind it. So knowing that that's already a common interest allows the relationship, the friendship, the growth, the brotherhood to really propel forward without any of these additional time wasters, you know, because you have this commonality. And so I encourage everybody, if you're struggling with releasing, if you're struggling with properly becoming the man that you want to be, if you're having difficulty with exuding masculinity, or you're looking for other men to gain insight from or to share insight with, I encourage you to check out the Sons of God Discord community. There's also the Phoenix program, one-on-one consulting for a much more in-depth level of accountability if you are interested in that as well.
Yeah, and that's designed to get you to 90 days. 90 days plus.
90 days.
That's kind of like the golden marker for many of us guys. If you can break through 90 days, you're going to be on very, very strong ground to just continue indefinitely. That's the aim. So the Phoenix program will help you get to that 90-day mark with hardcore accountability, mentorship, and you'll be in a group of guys who are doing the same thing. Well, thank you, brother. A pleasure as always.
Yes, sir. God bless you. God bless your family.
Thank you, bro. God bless you.
Thank you very much.
Keep those gym sessions going. I can see change happening.
It's happening slowly but surely in these old bones, you know. But it's happening. It wouldn't be happening as fast as it is if I wasn't retaining. I can tell you that.
100%. Yeah, it's the key. All right, brother. Well, you have a great night. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. May peace be with you.
Peace be with you. Later.
See ya.